Morning, India. Hi, Anya.
She got my name wrong. Oh.
All right, I'll give everybody who's going to join us a few minutes to get on, and then we will get started. Got some shout outs today, too. Let me go let my dog in. I think he's at the door. Come on. What are you doing? Come here. You guys see him? There he is. Say hello.
Like she got a wig on.
He does. I put a wig on him every day. Oh, okay. Don't bite me, please. No. Stinker. Yep, he wears a wig. Oops. Like Jason's gonna join us. Good morning, Jason.
Hi.
Malachi there with you?
Yeah, he's somewhere playing basketball.
All right, well, I didn't get work from him for Monday, so you better tell him to come join us.
Oh! Malachi? You in trouble? You ain't do no work on Monday.
Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Malachi.
Hi.
Your brother's showing you up. He's on my list for shout outs.
Huh?
All right, we got a few more joining us. Malachi, you better stick around so you can get your work done with us. Hi, Armani. Good morning, Nyla. Hi, Mardale.
Leave me forward.
All right.
Aggressive.
Good morning. Glad you guys are here. Nice to see you, Armani.
Armani.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and mute you all so we can get started. First, I have a very long list of shout outs that people I'd like to recognize. All of these people have completed both the questions and the exit ticket for Monday. So do what these people did. Tristan Calloway, nice job. Samaria, Mark Day, Jason, you're on here, nice job. Jaden, Destiny, killing it, nice job. Andrew, Sierra, Mordale, nice job. Shout out to Leah, Joshua, India, you got those in, Devay, and Anya. So all these people have both of the assignments for so far this week. They're completely caught up. So really nice job. Proud of you all. Reminder also that I emailed your current grades to you. If you didn't look at it, please go check it. If you're confused, please reach out to me. More than likely, if you don't have a 3, it's because I'm missing some work from you. Pretty much the only way to get a 1 is if you haven't done anything so far, which doesn't apply to any of you here because obviously you're here. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? Cool. Looks like Kahara is trying to join us. Today we are going to, can you guys hear my dog rattling and he's trying to get me to play with it. Today we're going to continue on with chapter 5 in the book. This chapter is a little bit longer, but you don't have as many questions. There will also be an exit ticket as well, so we're just going to tackle this together. So let me get my screen pulled up here. So go ahead, if you're able to, you can open up that form on your device. I'll be pausing and going back to this just like I have been. I will pull up the chapter. If you didn't get a chance also yesterday, first of all, yesterday we played trivia, so if you weren't on Zoom, you missed out. It was a good time. I also posted some really good exit ticket examples, and we kind of talk through those in my video as well from yesterday. So if you haven't looked at that, please do so, because those are really good examples of what those CERs should look like. A couple more people joining me. There we go. Okay, so today we're reading chapter 5. Let me pull up that audio. Morning, Saoirse. Saoirse, you were on my shout out list. Nice job. You've got all your assignments caught up for this week. Reminder that if you're working off of a smaller device, you can also write your answers on paper. I'm totally fine with that. Man, we got everybody joining today. I know it looks like Kahara's having trouble.
Oh, good morning, Miss Eichmann.
Hi, good morning. I didn't see you there. Today you were
Of
all
course you
on my shout out list. Nice job. You've got all your assignments caught up for this week. Okay. Miss Furlong, I might have you, if you need Kahara's number, I can send it to you, but it looks like she's having trouble joining. I don't know if maybe you can call her. We'll see if it works. I don't know. All right, let's get started. Chapter 5. Here we go. So chapter 4, who can tell us what happened in chapter 4? What was chapter 4 all about? Anybody? I know you got to think back to
She got arrested
Yes, why was she arrested today?
for sitting in her seat when the officer told her to get up.
Yeah. What was she accused of doing to the police officers too when she was arrested?
Scratching and kicking him.
Right. Did she actually do those things?
Nope.
No, totally peaceful. Just was exercising her right. Exactly. I'm sorry, India. I didn't see your hand raised. All right, here we go. If you're not muted, go ahead and mute yourself. Let me see if this is. Oh, here we go. Andrew's joining us. Hi, Andrew. Glad you're here. Oh, it looks like Kahara did join. Hi, Kahara. I think we're good, Miss Furlong. Thank you. Who is that? All right, we're ready. Chapter 5.
Day after 5. There's the girl who got arrested. The world is a severe schoolmaster. Phyllis Wheatley, the first published African-American poet, 1753, 1784. The news that a schoolgirl had been arrested for refusing to surrender her bus seat to a white passenger flashed through Montgomery's Black community and traveled far beyond. One man from Sacramento, California, wrote to Claudette, "The wonderful thing which you have just done makes me feel like a craven coward. How encouraging it would be if more adults had your courage, self-respect, and integrity."
Already starting off with question 1. Let me go ahead and zoom in here. Oh, there we go. Somebody else is. Oh, Malachi's joining us because I called them out. All right. Question 1. How did people seem to react to Claudette after she refused to give up her seat on the bus? So I'm specifically referencing this particular part of the book, those first 2 paragraphs. I'll pull that back up just a second after I read you the answer choice options. A, people thought she was stupid for doing such a cowardly thing. B, people thought that she should have been arrested because what she did was illegal. C, people felt scared for her safety and well-being following her arrest. Or D, people felt encouraged by her bravery and wanted more adults to be like her. So again, we're just referencing this first part of chapter 5. Feel free to reread that to yourself if you'd like, and go ahead and answer that question 1 either on your form or on paper. Whose hand was that? Did somebody have their hand up? I can't tell who that is. Andrew, is that you?
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
It's the Claudia Colvin chapter 4, right?
Claudette Colvin chapter 5.
Hold up.
So if you go to Wednesday's assignments in Google Classroom,
I see it.
you got it? Cool. We're just on question 1.
Oh, I was about to say the answer.
Well, what's the answer?
It's D.
People felt encouraged by her. Good.
Yeah.
All right, everybody ready to move on? Cool. Here we go.
In Montgomery, students stopped one another at bus corners and by their lockers saying things like, "Have you ever heard of Claudette Colvin? Well, do you know anyone who knows her? Where does she go to school?" Joanne Robinson, a professor of English at Alabama State College at the time, later wrote, "Within a few hours, every Negro youngster on the streets discussed Colvin's arrest. Telephones rang. Clubs called special meetings and discussed the event with some degree of alarm. Mothers expressed concern about permitting their children on the buses." Joanne Robinson had a personal reason to admire anyone who took on the bus system. In 1949, just after she had moved to Montgomery, Robinson had boarded a bus for the airport. It was Christmas break, and she was flying off to Cleveland to visit relatives. After dropping a dime in the fare box, she absent-mindedly sat down in one of the 10 front seats reserved for whites. Still new to town, she hadn't thought to walk to the back. Besides, there were only 2 other passengers on the entire bus. Lost in holiday thoughts, she was startled by the realization that someone's face was inches from hers. It was the bus driver shouting, "Get up from there! Get up from there!" His hand was drawn back as if to strike her. She snatched up her packages and stumbled out the front door, nearly sprawling in the mud as the bus pulled away. "I felt like a dog," she later wrote. He had picked the wrong person to bully. Smart, energetic, and extremely well-connected, Joanne Robinson was an active member of the Women's Political Council, a large and influential civic group of professional Black women in Montgomery. Some WPC members were Alabama State College professors. Others, including Claudette's teacher, Geraldine Nesbitt, were ASC graduates who had become teachers. Shortly after Robinson took over as president of the WPC in 1950, she led a successful campaign to make white merchants include the titles Mr., Mrs., and Miss on bills and announcements sent to Black customers. It was an important measure of respect. Though Robinson owned her own car and rarely rode the city bus, the memory of the driver's bullying behavior and how humiliated she had felt wouldn't go away. She started interviewing Black residents who had been mistreated on the city buses and writing down their stories. She soon possessed a thick file of nightmare accounts. Robinson longed to do something about the buses, but she didn't know quite what. In March 1954, she organized a face-to-face meeting of Black leaders, city officials, and bus company representatives to complain about the way Blacks were treated on the buses and to propose reforms.
So keep in mind that there were people that had already kind of definitely experienced similar treatment that Claudette had that day that she refused to give up her seat on the bus. And there were already adults that had been working to make changes with the bus system in Montgomery. This woman being one of them, Miss Robinson being one of them.
The meeting was pleasant enough, but unproductive. She kept at it. 2 months later, she wrote a letter to Montgomery's mayor, W.A. Tacky Gale, on behalf of the Women's Political Council. Robinson pressed for 3 changes to the bus rules. 1, a new seating plan that would let Blacks sit from back to front and whites from front to back until the bus filled up, as was the practice in several other southern cities. 2, an end to making Blacks pay their fares at the front of the bus, but then get off and re-enter through the rear door to find a seat at the back. 3, a requirement that drivers stop at every corner in Black neighborhoods just as they did in white neighborhoods. Robinson's diplomatic letter contained one fragment of steel. In the third to last paragraph, she wrote that if things did not get better, there has been talk from 25 or more local organizations of planning a citywide boycott of buses.
So this woman in particular was already trying to change the laws and do things to help better the situation on the buses. Let's look at question 2. Read the sentence from page 41, then answer the question. In the third to last paragraph, she wrote that if things did not get better, there has been talk from 25 or more local organizations of planning a citywide boycott of buses. What did Robinson say would happen if there were not changes to the buses? So you're just going to type your answer in this box, or if you're doing it on paper, you can also write it down on paper. Totally fine. I'll give you a minute or so to tackle that, and then we will move on. Questions? Everybody good? I guess, did I give you the power to unmute yourselves? I don't know. I think I did.
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
Mardale, you still there?
Leave me unmuted. Leave me unmuted.
Yes. Nyla wants to look
Like
back.
my dog.
So I will refer back to the book. Here's that last paragraph. Give you a second to get that finished. Sorry, this will move out of the way in a second. Here's your question. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Go back.
To the questions?
No. To where she said,
It's this paragraph right here.
yeah.
Sorry, guys. I'm going to try to add Xavier on here. So it will let me. Give me just a second. Oh, there he is. Perfect. Okay, never mind. All right, everybody ready to move on?
No.
No.
All right, 30 more seconds.
Hey, Miss Eichmann.
Hi, glad you figured it out. We're on question 2 right now. We're going to move on in just a second. So why don't you just join us? You can start with question 3, and then I can go back after we're all done and get questions 1 and 2 for you. Okay?
Okay.
All right. We're going to go ahead and continue on. If you need to come back to question 2, we can do that at the end. Here we go.
The idea of a bus boycott had been gaining momentum throughout the Black community for months. Its power was obvious. 3/4 of Montgomery's bus passengers were Black. If everyone quit riding, they could starve the City Lines bus company into reason. Still, the letter stopped short of calling for an end to segregated seating. As Robinson later wrote, in Montgomery in 1955, no one was brazen enough to announce publicly that Black people might boycott city buses for the specific purpose of integrating those buses. Just to say that minorities wanted better seating arrangements was bad enough. Robinson's letter led only to more polite meetings. The whites offered coffee, nodded, and smiled. but refused to budge an inch when it came to Jim Crow. Still, Claudette Colvin's arrest had stripped the veneer of politeness from the talks. She had been wrenched from her seat and dragged off a bus by police in front of shocked witnesses. People were angry. Sidebar: bus boycotts. The idea of boycotting or staying off public vehicles until reforms were made was nothing new, but it had never succeeded for long on a large scale. Between 1900 and 1906, Montgomery was one of 25 southern cities to protest segregated streetcars through boycotts. More recently, in June 1953, the Black community of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, had boycotted the city's buses for several days to protest segregated seating. Though they weren't able to evict Jim Crow, the Baton Rouge protesters developed a free ride transportation system and left a detailed blueprint for other bus protesters to follow.
Okay, so that just tells you a little bit more about bus boycott. So essentially, what question 2 was referencing is that Miss Robinson, who was trying to fight for the changes on the buses, was saying, well, I've got a lot of people who are ready to stay off the bus, which what would happen if a large majority of those people who rode the bus every day all of a sudden stopped riding the bus? What do you think would happen? Andrew, go ahead.
They would, like the pastor said, they would lose a lot of people and a lot of money because half of the people that ride the buses are Black because they can't get jobs.
Back big book.
It's all about money. Malachi, you want to add on?
Like you said, that it was all their money,
Mm-hmm.
and they probably closed down, and nobody be riding the buses no more.
Right. Andrew, to your point about Black people not having jobs, yes, they had jobs. It's just
No, I'm talking like they can't get good jobs.
I see what you're saying. So they relied on public transportation.
They didn't have enough money to get cars.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also in major cities like New York, for example, most people take the subways and things, right? Just because it's more accessible than it is here in like St. Louis. So that might have been part of the reason in Montgomery, but exactly to your point, they would lose, the bus system would lose a lot of money. And once people start taking away money, then people start to care, right?
However you say it, they had a lot of money. They had a lot of Black people there. So
right. Yep. Okay, let's look at question 3. How did Claudette's arrest impact the possibility of a bus boycott? So I'm going to back up to this last paragraph that we looked at before we looked at the bus boycotts. This paragraph right here. I'm going to reread that because I want that to be fresh in your mind as you're answering question 3. Robinson's letter only led to more polite meetings. The whites offered coffee, nodded and smiled, but refused to budge an inch when it came to Jim Crow. Still, Claudette Colvin's arrest had stripped the veneer of politeness from the talks, meaning that people weren't being polite anymore. She had been wrenched from her seat and dragged off by a police. I'm sorry. Let me start that sentence again. She had been wrenched from her seat and dragged off a bus by police in front of shocked witnesses. People were angry. So, thinking about that, how did Claudette's arrest impact the possibility of a bus boycott? A, people felt bad for her and they wanted Claudette to be able to sit wherever she wanted. B, the Black community was angry and became more serious about boycotting the buses. C, the Black community was pleased with the changes that were made to the buses. Or D, Claudette was too afraid to ride a bus ever again. So thinking about the fact that she was dragged off that bus and arrested in front of several shocked witnesses, how were people reacting now to that boycott? Andrew, I'm going to give everyone just a second to answer on their own, and then we can talk about it. Andrew, go ahead.
So it's B.
Yep, they were angry and became more serious about boycotting the buses. Questions? All right, cool. Nice job so far, guys. Let me go back to where we stopped. Right in here somewhere. Let's see.
Just to say that minorities wanted better seating arrangements was bad enough. Brought for other bus protesters to follow.
Sorry, we're going to repeat.
Claudette's arrest made
Here we
her
go.
the center of attention wherever she went. On the following Sunday, Reverend Johnson led the congregation in prayer for the girl among them who had been arrested for bravely standing up to the bus driver and the police and challenging the whole ugly system. The next day, classmates swarmed around her when she pulled up to Booker T. Washington High School in her cousin's car. They followed her into homeroom and asked to hear her story. Students pointed at her in the halls, whispering, "There's the girl who got arrested." Opinion at Booker T. Washington was sharply divided between those who admired Claudette's courage and those who thought she got what she deserved for making things harder for everyone. Some said it was about time someone stood up. Others told her that if she didn't like the way things were in the South, she should go up north. Still others couldn't make up their minds. No one they knew had ever done anything like this before. A few of the teachers, like Miss Nesbitt, embraced me, Claudette recalls. They kept saying, "You were so brave." But other teachers seemed uncomfortable. Some parents seemed uncomfortable too. I think they knew they should have done what I did long before. They were embarrassed that it took a teenager to do it. Facing serious criminal charges, and with her court hearing only 2 weeks away, Claudette feared she might be sent to a reform school as a juvenile delinquent. She had a lot to lose. She was a good student with dreams of college and a career. She was not about to plead guilty to anything, but she didn't know what to do or whom to turn to. Somehow, she had to find a lawyer and figure out how to pay for one. She had no time to lose.
Keep in mind that when we read in the beginning that it was not new that Black passengers were charged with committing crimes on buses. I say that loosely because all they were doing was sitting in a seat, right? However, all of those people just said, "Yeah, I'm guilty, I did it." They paid their fine and moved on. Claudette was refusing not to plead guilty because she knows that she did nothing wrong. This was something that had never actually been done before, so kind of unknown territory. So she has to get a lawyer in order to represent her. Questions so far?
So she doesn't get a lawyer, she's going to jail.
Well,
basically,
she needs a good lawyer to hopefully help keep that from happening.
Yeah, because they would just give her a white lawyer and make her plead guilty.
But hold on. If she get like what Andrew said, if she get a white lawyer, isn't that lawyer just gonna say, "Oh, well, she's guilty"? No.
Yeah, most likely.
Here's what I think is that considering the time period, there's probably not a white lawyer. Well, no, I take that back. The chances of there being a white lawyer to represent her might be slim, because then that person would be putting themselves at risk. Not saying that there weren't white people who would be willing to do that, but considering what she is fighting for, they wanted to find a strong African American lawyer to help her and who knows the law. Does that make sense?
Okay, now I have another question.
But she couldn't pay for the lawyer.
Go ahead, Xavier.
Okay, so if there was a why would they make a Black African American man a lawyer if they don't even want? Like for Claudette, that woman didn't even give her the hat that she wanted. People kept calling her coots.
Right.
So why would they make a Black African American man a lawyer if they wouldn't even give a little girl a hat?
That's a good question. I'm sure that those people had to work really, really hard and had to have enough money to go through school and probably faced a lot of prejudice and certainly could only attend an all-black university because of Jim Crow laws, but it was still possible. It just was not easy, right?
Okay, so what's the chances of her even getting a black African American lawyer?
Well, let's find out. Here we go.
Everybody got busy. We started working family connections, trying to find someone to help me. My great aunt's husband, C.J. McNair, told my parents to get in touch with Mr. E.D. Nixon. C.J. thought my case might be a good civil rights case. Mr. Nixon called the shots in the black community of Montgomery. He knew everybody, so Mom called him, and he agreed to help us.
So is he like a lawyer or something?
Nixon.
Yes. Here we're going to
When
learn
black
about him.
people had serious problems in Montgomery, they went to E.D. Nixon. Employed as a railroad sleeping car porter, Nixon worked tirelessly throughout his life to advance the rights of black people. A tall, rugged man with a commanding voice and an earthy sense of humor, Nixon seemed to know everyone: jailers, white policemen, judges, newspaper reporters, lawyers, and government officials. An early president of the Montgomery chapter of the NAACP, Nixon was often able to fix common people's problems through plain talk and informal dealings before they hardened into legal cases. Nixon moved swiftly on two fronts. He called Fred Gray, one of Montgomery's two black lawyers, and convinced him to represent Claudette in court. Then he organized a committee of black leaders to meet downtown with the police commissioner. Among those selected was the new pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, 26-year-old Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The attempt to obtain justice for Claudette Colvin marked Dr. King's political debut. A conference of black leaders, the bus company's manager, and the police commissioner seemed to break the tension. Both men were quite pleasant and expressed deep concern over what had happened to Claudette, Dr. King later wrote. The bus company conceded that, according to the driver, Claudette had been sitting behind the 10 white seats in front, and there had been no seats available when the driver ordered her to move. That seemed to be an admission that she hadn't broken the law. The police commissioner agreed the seating rules were confusing and promised that the city's attorney would soon clarify them in writing. The one thing they didn't do was drop the charges against Claudette. The trial would go on. Still, Dr. King walked out of the meeting feeling hopeful, and Joanne Robinson also felt her spirits lifting as she stepped outside.
So because she's not pleading guilty, that means that they have to take this to trial and go to court in front of a judge.
Because she's not guilty.
Correct. You're right. So thinking about the time and the system, they're going to make it very difficult for her to find her way out of this, even though we know she did nothing wrong. And now since she's going to court, there's going to be a trial. That judge is going to come to a verdict, either that she is guilty or that she's not guilty.
Okay, right? But hold on. When that other little boy went to court, the judge said, "Oh, we don't care, you're going to jail."
Right.
See you.
Not so that he was going to jail, he was sentenced to death, right?
Exactly. But he spent a couple of years in jail.
Mm-hmm. A little boy was sentenced to death?
That was earlier in the book, Andrew. He was a teenager, maybe early 20s. Yeah.
Okay. Did he kill him? Did they kill him?
I believe that his death penalty was not lifted. So eventually, yes.
They did?
Eventually, yes.
They killed him? Rest in peace.
The reason he was sentenced to go to death because he raped 2 white women. But hold on, if a white man would have raped a black woman, that person wouldn't have got the same
They probably would have got little to no charges, actually.
Exactly. You're right. That's what they said in the book. Yep. All right, good questions. Let's keep going, okay? Nice job.
We were given to understand that Claudette would be given every chance to clear her name, she later wrote. It was not to be a trial to determine guilt or innocence, but an effort to find out the truth. And if the girl were found innocent, her record would be clear. Those present left the conference feeling that everything would work out fairly for everyone. In the days before Claudette's trial, E.D. Nixon also called Rosa Parks, a soft-spoken, 42-year-old professional seamstress who had for many years been secretary of the Montgomery NAACP. Mrs. Parks was also the head of the NAACP's youth group in Montgomery. Nixon and Mrs. Parks had long tried to get more young blacks involved in the struggle for civil rights, but the Sunday afternoon NAACP youth meetings were for the most part poorly attended. However, both saw promise in the dramatic arrest, jailing, and trial of a 15-year-old bus protester.
Isn't this like Rosa Parks?
The girl was willing to tell her story.
Yep, that's where we're
Nixon
going to get to.
urged Mrs. Parks to get Claudette Colvin involved with the NAACP. The first time I ever met Rosa Parks was one Sunday afternoon when she walked into a church before an NAACP youth meeting. There were only a few students around. This small, fair-skinned woman with long, straight hair came up to me and looked me up and down. She said, "You're Claudette Colvin." Oh my God. I was looking for some big old burly overgrown teenager who sassed white people out. But no, they pulled a little girl off the bus. I said, they pulled me off because I refused to walk off.
Malachi, I just now saw your hand. Do you have a question?
No, not anymore.
I can get off right now. I can just do it on the phone.
He said he can get off right now. He can just do it on his phone.
Miss Eichmann,
Yes, sir.
my sister needs to see the computer, so I'm just gonna do it on my phone.
Okay, that's fine. Let me know if you have questions.
Okay.
All right. Nice job. Bye. Hi, Nevaeh.
Bye.
It's not.
All right, let's look at question 4. Why was Rosa Parks so surprised upon meeting Claudette? So I'm going to go back to that part in the book, let you review that paragraph. You're just writing in your answer a sentence or two. I'll give you about a minute or so to get that one done. If you're writing it on paper, totally fine. Otherwise, you're typing your answer in that form. Thank you. And I don't know who that is. Not Andrew, maybe Armani. I'm not sure. I got a thumbs up from one person.
No, I'm not done. I'm not done, Miss Eichmann.
Oh, okay.
That was me.
Oh, here.
Teenagers who says white.
Give you about 30-ish more seconds.
There's barely any people in here. It's like 9 people.
Thank you, Andrew. He's ready. Nice job, guys. I know this chapter is a little longer, but you're doing a good job. Malachi, you have a question?
Yeah, well, I saw a question four.
You what?
I think I answered question 4.
All right. I'm just going to pause it and I'll look over your answers, but we'll discuss some of the other questions, okay?
All right.
Miss Eichmann, I wrote my answers on some paper.
Perfect. Just send me a picture of it when we're all done, okay?
Okay.
All right, here we go. Continuing on.
Rosa had already asked the teachers at my school about me and found out I was a good student. She got even more interested when she realized she knew my mother, my biological mom, from Pine Level. Rosa had lived there too when she was younger. Mom was close friends with Rosa's brother, Sylvester, before she left Pine Level for Birmingham. We did all sorts of things to raise money for my lawyer. Rosa's mother baked and sold cookies. I was always eating them, and Rosa would come up and say, "Claudette, don't eat all the cookies or we won't have any to sell." Rosa put me up for Miss NAACP Montgomery Chapter. I finished second, but it didn't matter. All the money from the contest went to pay my lawyer anyway. Claudette's lawyer wasn't much older than she was. Bespectacled, serious, sporting a pencil-thin mustache,
That's her
and usually
lawyer.
seen in a neatly pressed suit, 24-year-old Fred Gray was just 6 months out of law school in March 1955. The youngest of 5 children, he had grown up riding the Montgomery City buses in a triangle between school and home and his job with the newspaper. He had never himself been beaten or threatened on a bus, but he had heard more than enough insults and witnessed more than enough abuse of Black passengers to last a lifetime. Like Claudette, he had vowed to study law in the North and then return home to destroy everything segregated I could find. After high school, Gray worked his way rapidly through Alabama State College and then went off to law school in Ohio. True to his pledge, he returned to Montgomery soon after graduation, passed the Alabama bar exam, and opened his practice in a tiny downtown office, finding his first clients through Black churches and NAACP meetings. He had lunch almost every day with Rosa Parks, who worked across the street at the Montgomery Fair department store. When Edie Nixon suggested he take the Claudette Colvin case, Gray leapt at the chance. Since Claudette had been charged with breaking the city and state segregation laws, Gray hoped he could use the case to show they were unconstitutional. There had never been a chance before, since no one except Claudette Colvin had ever pleaded not guilty to breaking the segregation laws in a bus arrest.
All right, let's look at question 5. Why was Claudette's case different from the other cases where Black people were accused of committing a crime on a bus? A, Claudette was the first teenager to ever refuse. B, Claudette was the first to say that she was not guilty of committing a crime. C, Claudette was the first to actually be arrested by an officer. Or D, Claudette was the first to hire a lawyer and defend herself. So kind of thinking about the conversation that we just had, I'll leave the answer choices up for a minute or so, and then I'll go back to the chapter. That way those of you who need to reference it can. Here's that last paragraph in the book. I'll give you all another minute or so to finish up with question 5.
You need to get some more people in here.
I do my best, Andrew. You tell them. Call your friends. Say, hey, come to Miss Eichmann's lesson. "30 more seconds, then I'm moving on." All right, here we go.
Can you go to the question and answers?
Oh, yeah. You go, Mardale.
I'm done.
Okay, I got it.
You good? Okay. Here we go.
March evening, Gray and his secretary, Bernice Hill, drove out to King Hill to meet Claudette and her parents. They sat around the Colvin small kitchen table sipping coffee and talking, while Hill took notes. Since Claudette was still a legal minor, one of her parents would have to file the lawsuit on her behalf. Given its importance, both parents would have to strongly support it. Gray took an instant liking to the entire family, sizing them up as brave and self-reliant. For her part, Claudette admired Fred Gray as the first person she had ever met who was doing what she herself wanted to do someday. Gray urged all three to consider the hazards of contesting the charges in court. By pleading not guilty, Claudette would be doing more than just talking back to whites. She would be challenging Jim Crow dead on. Her name would almost certainly be in the paper. Homes had been bombed, jobs lost, and people lynched for less. All three Colvins simply looked back at him, unshaken. Gray turned to Claudette and asked if she was sure. "Yes, I am," she replied. Her quick response and the family's unity of purpose sent Fred Gray off King Hill with a sense of hope. Whatever was to come, at least the Colvins were not people who would back down.
Question 6. We've got one more question after this one. You guys are doing a great job. I know it's a little bit longer. Read the sentence from page 47, then answer question 6. Her name would be most certainly in the paper. Homes had been bombed, jobs lost, and people lynched or killed for less. All three Colvins simply looked back at him, unshaken. Gray turned to Claudette and asked if she were sure. "Yes, I am," she replied. Question 6. Why do you think that Claudette and her family decided to move forward with the case, knowing that they would be putting themselves in great danger? So this is more of like your opinion, kind of thinking about what we've read so far, what we know about Claudette. Her parents' jobs, they could have been fired. Their home could be attacked. They could be attacked. But yet they still, with confidence, were like, nope, we're going to do this. Why do you think that they decided to do that, knowing that they would be putting themselves in great danger? I'll let it sit here for a second. And then I'll go back to that chapter in the book. This, I'm just looking for maybe a sentence or two. Again, more so your opinion, but backed by what we know about her so far. Give you another minute or so. Saoirse, we're on question 6. Oops. India, Nyla, you guys doing okay? Thanks, India. Thanks, Nyla. Malachi, you good?
Yes.
All right. Jason still there with you?
Yeah, but he doing something.
All right. Everybody good? Ready to move on? We'll finish up this chapter. You'll have one more question in your exit ticket, and that's it.
There had been 13 Black students on the Highland Gardens bus the day Claudette was arrested, most of them her classmates at Booker T. Washington. Gray arranged for the high school principal to issue passes for students willing to testify at Claudette's hearing. Just before the trial, he spoke to them as a group, coaching them about what they might be asked and how best to answer. In the days before Claudette's hearing, Black leaders rallied around her. The Citizens Coordinating Committee, a group of prominent Black men and women, mimeographed a leaflet and passed it around Montgomery, entitled, "To Friends of Justice and Human Rights." It described Claudette's arrest and demanded that she be acquitted of charges. It also called for punishment of the bus driver and insisted on clarification of the long-standing city bus rule, constantly ignored by drivers, that said no rider had to give up a seat unless another was available. Claudette's hearing was held on March 18, 1955, late in the morning. A cousin drove Claudette, QP, and their neighbor Annie Larkin off the hill and down to Montgomery County's juvenile court. Claudette felt certain her troubles would be over by nightfall. "I thought Fred Gray was a very good lawyer," she remembers. "He seemed to have prepared very well. I was confident." Because Claudette's plea of not guilty to breaking the segregation law was important to every Black bus rider in Montgomery, several leaders attended the hearing, including Joanne Robinson and the Reverend Ralph Abernathy, pastor of the First Baptist Church. It was nearly noon when Claudette and Fred Gray were summoned into the small courtroom to appear before a juvenile court judge, Wiley Hill, Jr. Students remained in the hall, straining to hear what was going on behind the door and waiting for their names to be called. Claudette faced 3 separate charges: violating the segregation law, disturbing the peace, and assaulting the policeman who had pulled her off the bus. Judge Hill heard testimony from patrolmen Paul Headley and T.J. Ward, the arresting officers. Ward testified that when he'd placed Claudette under arrest, she had fought the officers, kicking and scratching them. She insisted she was colored and just as good as white, Ward informed the judge. 2 officers were able to show a letter written by a white passenger on the bus that day, praising them as gentlemen almost to the point of turning the other cheek, who spoke to Claudette in tones so soft that I doubt if any of the other passengers aboard the bus even heard them. When called, Fred Gray's student witnesses offered a very different story of 2 police officers confronting a teenage girl with frightening force on a packed bus. Gray challenged the laws themselves, contending that the provisions of Alabama's laws and Montgomery's city ordinances requiring racial segregation were unconstitutional. Just before lunchtime, Judge Hill delivered his blunt ruling, guilty of all charges. Claudette would be placed on probation, was declared a ward of the state, and was released to the custody of her parents. He cracked his gavel, dismissing the case. As the words washed over Claudette, she felt a wave of anguish, and then everything she had been holding inside for the past 2 weeks came pouring out. Claudette's agonized sobs penetrated the atmosphere of the courthouse, wrote Joanne Robinson. Many people brushed away their own tears.
So the judge said that she was guilty, and that was that.
Now I was a criminal. Now I would have a police record whenever I went to get a job or when I tried to go to college. Yes, I was free on probation, but I would have to watch my step everywhere I went for at least a year. Anyone who didn't like me could get me in trouble. On top of that, I hadn't done anything wrong. Not everyone knew the bus rule that said they couldn't make you get up and stand if there were no seat available for you to go to, but I did. When the driver told me to go back, there was no other seat. I hadn't broken the law. And assaulting a police officer? I probably wouldn't have lived for very long if I had assaulted those officers. When I got back to school, more and more students seemed to turn against me. Everywhere I went, people pointed at me and whispered. Some kids would snicker when they saw me coming down the hall. It's my constitutional right. It's my constitutional right. I had taken a stand for my people. I had stood up for our rights. I hadn't expected to become a hero, but I sure didn't expect this. I cried a lot, and people saw me cry. They kept saying I was emotional. Well, who wouldn't be emotional after something like that? Tell me, who wouldn't cry?
Okay. Here's what I'm gonna do because this took a really long time. So first let's answer question 7. Or I'll read question 7 to you. Hold on, I'm writing down your names. So question 7 is a CER. So you have to describe the kind of person that you think Claudette is. Use these sentence starters below to help you. So similar to your exit tickets, you're giving me that paragraph. Give me your claim, your evidence from the text, and your reasoning. Those of you that are on this Zoom chat right now, I'm going to excuse you from the exit slip because we had some really good conversations, I think. And we've been on here for an hour, and I know that that's a lot of time when a lot of you have other responsibilities to do. So I'm writing down Nyla, India, Saoirse, Miss Furlong, you don't have to do it either. Malachi, Mardale, Andrew, and Armani, if I didn't say your name. I will excuse you from the exit ticket.
Xavier was in here to talk about conversation.
I got it. So that means that I'm expecting you to have a solid answer for question 7 because I'm excusing you from the exit ticket. Okay? Questions? All right, I'll hang out for about 5 more minutes. If you have questions on question 7, I will be here to help. Otherwise, if you don't need me, make sure you click submit once you're done. Don't worry about the exit ticket. Nice job. And I will see you guys tomorrow.
Bye.